4-5 volunteers composted napkins in India, about 6 brands which say that they are compostable. And across a span of 18 to 24 months, none of these started disintegrating. So while, of course, we're trying to come up with more holistic solutions which are eco-friendly, just saying that we need to think about it deeper.
Welcome back to The Logical Indian. I'm Apurwa, and today we shall talk all about periods. The panel discussion is brought to you in collaboration with Infano Care and Peesafe. Let me quickly take a moment to introduce you to some of the most dynamic change makers creating on-ground impact. So we have with us Soumya Dabiwal, co-founder of Project Bala, which is an impact-oriented organization which aims to tackle the expense of modern sanitary products, disposal problem, lack of information, and social taboos surrounding menstruation. Then we have Sonal Jain, co-founder of Boond, which is again a social enterprise working on menstruation, menstrual literacy, sustainable products, advocacy, policy, and programming. Joining us on this panel is also Anurag Chauhan, founder of Humans of Humanity, with WASH as one of its pilot projects. Lastly, we have Ashrina Jain, Outreach Associate and Campaign Lead at Peesafe, a personal care and hygiene brand that focuses on long-term menstruation management. Along the way, Peesafe is equally set and focused on overcoming taboos and stigma that come with menstruation. So thank you very much for finding time and speaking to me today. I'd like to start off this conversation by addressing the elephant in the room. So, a lot of times people express the contradiction with respect to sustainable menstruation as against period poverty. To set the context, a discourse often takes place which says that, in a nutshell, that at a time when there's already stigma attached to menstruation, in addition to inaccessibility of menstrual product, how right is it to nudge menstruators, for not using eco-friendly menstrual products? So while I do understand that this is again subject to rural and urban demography, so on Project Bala, your organization is extensively operating in the rural setup in different countries, not just in India. So I'd really like to hear your thoughts on this.
Hi, thanks, Apurwa. It's wonderful to be on this panel. A lot of people here whose work I admire personally. So excited to be sharing the same space with everyone. Your question's actually very interesting. And I think while asking the question, you also gave a very pertinent point over here, which is that giving a blanket answer to a personal hygiene problem is not the solution. So when we talk about period poverty and we talk about whether eco-friendly products or sustainable products should be pushed, it's a very, very subjective and contextualized answer. Here we've got Sonal, who's working with Boond, which of course, menstrual cups is synonymous with Boond in India, Sonal. And here, if you do think about period poverty over the long term, Boond is encouraging the use of cups, which can be used, say, I think the lifespan varies between 6 months, 10 years, Sonal, depending on what the quality is. And eventually, when you do the calculations and the amount of money people are spending, it is a cost reduction. So even if we are pushing for sustainable products and eco-friendly products, we are eventually also promoting cost-effective products. So personally, as an organization, Project Bala is working towards providing reusable sanitary napkins because our work is with rural India. And again, just using the term rural India is unfair because our approach is also very contextualized. In some spaces where there's no access to water and people can't wash the sanitary pads that we provide them, it's not an effective solution. But in the areas where there is the kind of water availability and resources to be able to wash the sanitary napkins, this is actually a sustainable, reusable sanitary napkin is actually the perfect solution when it comes to period poverty, as well as when it comes to thinking about the long-term environmental aspects of using menstrual hygiene products. So we have to think according to who are we talking to? What is the audience that is, part of our target groups? What is the infrastructure do they have available? And I do believe, honestly, that reusable sanitary napkins and cups are definitely a much, much better solution. And say when it came to COVID, a lot of us quickly jumped for relief to provide sanitary napkins, which were disposable, because at that time you need to think about what is the urgency, what is the requirement. And that's how you need to think about personal hygiene, that choice, that option, and the context that you're working
Right. I think that's a very valid point, Soumya. Thank you very much for that. Now, talking about menstrual products and especially sustainable menstrual products. Now, Peesafe is a brand which is actively involved in driving progressive conversations on menstrual hygiene. Ashima, to get your thoughts in here, what do you think bigger brands like Peesafe and likes can do to sort of break cultural taboos around menstruation?
So, very rightly pointed out that we should also look at the scenario where we are living in at this moment. But as a brand, I truly believe that all brands have the power and the ability to educate people on this, right? And as a brand, we should be talking about menstruation openly and also discussing it with people. So now, when we talk about brands who are selling menstrual products in particular, they should recognize their power and their ability to, talk about this and also stand for it. um, for a brand like Peesafe, our goal is to always communicate the concept behind the product, and also to uh, kind of address the curation behind what we are giving out. We want people to perceive what we are trying to communicate. So we want to be transparent as to what offerings we have. Also, we our intention is always, as they say that when your intention is good, nothing can stop you or can make you afraid of anything that gets in your way. So for us, it's always about helping others. It is always about doing our part to ensure that nobody suffers in silence. As a brand, we are very vocal. We don't want to mislead our consumers or mislead people, for that matter of fact. Some of our campaigns that we run, which are bleed your way or pass on the cup, and our sister concern brand Raho Safe, which also has men by pads. These are all campaigns which focuses on the taboos which are associated with period in our community. For instance, if I want to talk about men by pad in particular, it's about how we want to normalize the fact that men should also buy pads. There's nothing wrong in that. For instance, cup pass on the cup. Right now at this point of time, there are a lot of women we've spoken to who have trouble in actually getting pads at this moment, because pharmacies are not available to kind of help you right now. So switch to a sustainable option, switch to an option which will stay with you for at least 5 to 10 years, and you don't have to worry about purchasing pads moving forward. So I think as a brand, this is what we have been focusing on, and are looking forward to talking more vocally about all of this.
Right. So, having these conversations obviously are very important. And having said that, a lot of times we intentionally, no, I mean, unintentionally, we tend to exclude certain communities when talking about menstruation. Now, coming to Sonal, I'd like to sort of understand from you the media sensitivity that is required in terms of using inclusive language, or, sort of being mindful of intersectionality while putting forth public and private conversations on menstruation.
Thanks, Apurva. I'd like to start off with actually addressing a little bit of what Soumya and Ashrina both mentioned by citing an example. I think 2, 3 years ago, Poon was working with this community of farmers in Maharashtra near Aurangabad, about 60 kilometers away, super dry villages. And of the 180 odd menstruators we spoke to, about 12% cupported. And then I think 25, 26 people wanted to move to cloth pads, and we facilitated that. And post that, if you see now 3 years later, the demand for menstrual cups and cloth pads that we've supplied has exceeded the original number of people with whom we did the sessions. So while the change is slow, because it also takes certain orientation, and then there is um, change required in knowledge, behavior, attitude, perception, so many things. While it is gradual, but it is still definitely there. And the reason why these menstruators opted for sustainable products, particularly cups there, was not because it is eco-friendly, not because it's pocket friendly, or that it is an healthier option. It was simply because the village had water scarcity. And if you're using a product like menstrual cup, then you need very little water. Otherwise, every time you go to pee, you need about 2-3 mugs of water. But in this case, because the cup is worn and then there is no blood in the vulva, um, it's only like half a cup of water, and that's what they prefer. And these were all menstruators who were farmers and had to travel long distances. So that's what worked for them. So as Soumya was telling, context is super important. I think just I want to reiterate that, because in certain cities where cloth pads are preferred, certain places where there is no sunshine, maybe cloth cups are preferred. And also just doing like one choice, as in one product per person, or not giving the menstruator a choice is not helpful, simply because there are menstruators with various kinds of body conditions, various kinds of choices like low hanging cervixes, or having endometriosis, or could have vaginismus, and different kind of people might require different kind of product accordingly. So it is definitely great to give them a choice. Now, having said that, I mean, just taking it forward, once when we were doing a session in Haryana in 2019, I remember using the word jinko mahavari aati hai in Hindi instead of saying aurat. And this 15 something year old person came up and asked me, why did I keep saying that? And post the session, we chatted for about 20 minutes, and we realized that they were trans, and they didn't have any support within that community. So we connected them with another queer community in Delhi. And this was only enabled because we kept using the word menstruators and not women in particular. So when we talk about menstruation, we need to talk about, I mean, also when we talk about periods, we should be actually talking about menstruation, because period is just 3 days of the entire cycle. There's so many hormonal changes that happen, and all of it requires equal, if not more, focus. So that one is, it's menstruation and not periods. And second is, it's menstrual products or menstrual health, menstrual hygiene, and not feminine products, feminine health and feminine hygiene, simply because not all menstruators are women. There are trans people, there are non-binary people, gender fluid people, and each one's menstrual experience is valid. So to ensure that there is no erasure of non-women menstruators, it is important to use the word menstruators, or people who menstruate, instead of just women. And also to bear in mind that not all women menstruate. There could be trans women, there could be women with other kinds of bodily conditions who might not menstruate. So it is important, if all of us as brands, as people who are in the space of menstrual health, as someone who is just generally discussing also, plus the government and media, of course, if we use language which is more inclusive.
Absolutely, Sonal. I think a lot of people even today are not informed about why the right vocabulary to use is right. Inclusive vocabulary to use is menstruators and not women per se. So having said that, often periods are considered as women's issue. I mean, this is what normally. I mean, in day-to-day conversations, people tend to say it like that. And I say this being conscious of the fact that periods are not the ultimate marker of womanhood. We have trans men and non-menstruating cisgender women, albeit often excluded from the conversation. Now, coming to Anurag, what responsibilities and accountability do you think non-menstruators have in the whole menstruation discourse?
Hi, first of all, thank you for having me. And it's a beautiful panel, and I'm getting to learn so many things from all the other speakers who are here. And that's what I think is the first step for all non-menstruators, to know what menstruation is, and to know and to find out. I mean, there was no rocket science about it. What happened with me, I'll tell you a very small experience. When I was playing with my mother's sanitary napkin that I stole from her cupboard, and trying to point my ink pen into it and figure out how it's absorbing all the liquid, my mother came up to me and did not say that, oh, this is a woman's issue and you're not supposed to know about it. And in no hushed tones, she just said, this is not for your fountain ink, this is for my blood. And that's what made me curious about what it is all about. And that's what led me to do what I'm doing today. Every day is a new learning. Every day I'm learning new things, figuring out what we can do for menstruators, for, I mean, of course, for a very long time, even I did not figure out that there are trans men who are menstruating. Only last year, we started working along with them. And I used to say this all the time that, women, 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 women. And now that Sonal is talking about the language that we're supposed to use when we talk about awareness for awareness purposes, or we speak in public platform, is very important. The biggest problem that I see around me is that when we talk about menstruation, they have to be right people talking about it. It's not always me talking about menstruation when we go do these workshops, because I might not have the correct information. So we have doctors, we have people who have the correct research, the correct information about menstruation. And this is what I see going wrong in many villages around us. What is happening? Organizations, which has become a very fancy part now, talking about menstruation, working on wash projects, working on, anything to do with menstruation has become fancy after Padman. And now the biggest problem is that you're giving them wrong information. So through this panel, I would really request that, we should make something like a curriculum that we can share with all the organizations working across the country on this platform, on this project, so that we can share our information, whatever little information that we have, and compile it. As of now, we've all been working as separate organizations in our own zones. But I mean, I think the possible solution would be if we all come together and work towards our agendas, of course, in the areas that we work in, but with the expertise of each other. Now, in 2018, Sonal, I gave a statement saying that if we don't deal with this poor menstrual hygiene as an issue, it'll become as big as polio. Now, in 2019, another article came out which says access to no menstrual hygiene products has become fifth biggest killer of women in the world. Now, reading that article, I was not happy that, what I said has come true, but I was rather sad that the government has still not woken up, has still not taken care about. We have Swachh Bharat campaign. We have so many campaigns which says Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, but at the end of the day, no one is ready to talk about this one project, which is menstruation or poor menstrual hygiene, to work on. There are, of course, schemes, there are, of course, projects, but are they coming on the ground? Is it really effective on the ground is what we need to figure out. And as we were talking initially before this conversation, we were talking about taxation, we were talking about accessibility. Now, I don't know how many of you come from Delhi, but when lockdown happened in Delhi, there was no sanitary napkins available in the markets because it was not considered to be in the essentials list. And urban women were facing issues with procuring sanitary napkins because they didn't have access to it. The other thing that I would also like to address through this platform is that we just don't need to empower or make aware only the rural communities. Even the urban communities, so many of them do not know about their products that they're using. About 3 years ago, I was speaking at a girls' college, which was a very renowned girls' college from Delhi. And one question that I asked them was as to how many of them knew that what their sanitary napkin was made of. Often when I go out with my girlfriends or with my friends that want to go to a shopkeeper to buy makeup or anything which is to do with their skincare, they're always concerned about vitamin E, vitamin this, vitamin that. I hope it won't give me a pimple. I hope it won't give me rash on my. I hope it won't give me any kind of allergy. But when they buy a sanitary napkin, they're only buying a sanitary napkin. They do not know what their sanitary napkin is made of. So I think the awareness is also required in the urban areas as much as it is required in the rural areas. And I would like to thank again all of you for telling me whatever you're sharing, and I'm learning a lot. And this will not stop. I'll keep learning and keep sending it out wherever I can, do whatever I can. And this is what all non-menstruators should do. Comfort the menstruators, give them the comfort that they deserve, not behave in a very impulsive way with them, and understand that for what reason. Labeling is very, very big issue, especially in the urban areas. They started labeling women as cranky. They started labeling women as, or menstruators as, they have mood swings, but not understanding why. So we need to understand why it's happening to them and be with them and stand by them. This is all we can do.
I had a couple of footnotes to add, if that's okay.
Right. Okay. Yes. Yes, Sonal, please go ahead.
Yeah, couple of collective spaces which are doing good collaborative work in the space of MHM would be Menstrual Health Alliance of India and MHM Collective. And while we're talking about accessibility, definitely lockdown has been a very poor example and also has brought to light multiple things. For one of the research articles we were doing, we did a whole series called COVID intersection menstruation. And somebody in Northeast pointed out that they were asked for an Aadhaar card to buy menstrual products, which we thought was uncanny and very, very weird and upsetting at the same time. But the positive side of accessibility to menstrual products at large also cannot be sidelined, because if you look at NHFS data, National Health and Family Survey data from 2017-18, it does show that over 55% of rural women and up to about 70 and a little more menstruators in sorry, not rural women, but menstruators in rural India and menstruators in urban India have access to these products. So it has been significantly increasing and has been on the rise since, especially since 1990, after LPG, because a lot more foreign brands also came into the Indian market. So that was one positive side of the story. And the third thing was just a small quick note. I think rather than, women going to makeup stores and checking for vitamin E in general, it should just be a practice for all human beings, because even men and trans people and all kinds of people go and buy makeup now, because makeup is not specifically, gendered that way. And our consumption, not just for menstrual products, but anything and everything we wear, right from a cotton t-shirt, how much water goes into it and how long cotton versus polyester versus nylon takes to decompose and disintegrate. I think when we start looking at life cycle of products and also vis-a-vis what is good for us, a lot of things make sense. And which is why the report by Women's Voices of Earth, a feminist nonprofit, made so much noise, because for the first time, somebody actually researched on what goes into a sanitary napkin, because sanitary napkins have been here since World War One. And even the first sanitary napkin, which was produced by Kotex, is probably still lying in a landfill somewhere, because they take somewhere around 500 to 700 years to start disintegrating. So that's just a general footnote on how it's better to consume more consciously, be it menstrual products or anything else.
So, just drawing from what Sonal you said, and also what Anurag just suggested about the world being more collaborative and using each other's expertise to kind of create an impact, and also talking about consumerism. So this question I'd like to open to everyone, as someone, like all of us are operating within the space of advocacy and program and a number of initiatives. How do you think can non-profit organizations and sort of brands and governments can come together and create an overall impact?
Definitely effective collaborations are the way forward, because we're looking at a country like India where currently there are almost 400 million menstruators across the country, and honestly there's no competition. When people say since 2019 there has been like this huge number of organizations working towards menstruation, and people keep asking me, because we started in 2016, they keep asking me, Ari, the competition must have increased so much, how are you dealing with it? We are so appreciative of the number of initiatives that have come up that are well informed. Again, I think Anurag brought this up. There's a lot of things that are being done on the surface, and there are a lot of other organizations who come up who are actually doing a very thorough on-ground research-based intervention in different areas. And we've got such a huge geography to cover, and that's only growing over the years, that there's definitely no competition. It's all a very healthy, collaborative effort. We work very closely with a lot of different menstrual hygiene organizations in different parts of India. So as a company, we, like Project Bala, takes a lot of pride in constantly innovating in products. How can we make our reusable pad better, incorporate all of the learnings that we have from our community into developing something that is more suitable for the communities that we're serving? And how can we disseminate that to different regions in collaboration with different organizations? And also, the question that you posed to Anurag about non-menstruators, how can they support us? I think having conversation with allies and different stakeholders is very, very important. For example, on the 28th of May, Project Bala is doing a session with female athletes And in addition to that, we're doing sessions with their coaches, because we can educate the female athletes, but without the support of their coaches, it's only a little bit that they can do in order to, you know, have a better experience while training on their period. So this entire conversation around, and this information that menstrual hygiene organizations can actually leverage all of these different partnerships to create a much more holistic intervention when it comes to awareness. So we are partnering with a sports organization. Can you imagine, like, a menstrual hygiene, only like a horse blinder? We're only working on periods, menstruation, a reusable sanitary napkins, and now we've taken up a coaching institute, a sports education organization, come together with them and are implementing this. In Bihar and West Bengal, we're collaborating with the government, with their youth gathers, to spread awareness amongst their communities. So there's so much that you can do. And essentially, for the question that you posed to Anurag, to get the stakeholders on board and to create a much more holistic intervention, to create that support system within the communities.
Yeah. And if I can add to that, just following, I have a threefold answer. First one is that when you say, what can we do for positive outcome? Can we define this outcome better? Because right now, there is no central or there's no nodal ministry which takes care of menstruation. It falls under the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Water and Sanitation, and Ministry of Women and Children. While each of these have their own targets around menstrual health, not one particular ministry is also responsible for a target, right? So then it makes it a little difficult when you're giving a proposal or for advocacy. It's easy to move around and then get lost in the file moving across different ministries and tables. So I think something around that, a little bit of restructuring perhaps will help. Hoping something does happen. The second thing is that if government does take care of everything, right from menstrual health conditions to products to having access to doctors to ultrasound to disposal of waste and social conversations, etc., then we'd be very happy to shut shop and do other things like be a travel influencer or do other cool things, right? But until such a day comes, I think all of us are here very happy doing something that brings us joy and is also close to our personal narratives. And the third thing, when it came to collaborations, again, want to resonate with and reiterate what Soumya said. As an organization that functions pan-India from just a small office, we do workshops in regional spaces, and we do workshops around menstrual life skills and not particularly products or just nutrition and exercise. We work with Project Hail in Lucknow, and then also worked with women athletes who are teenagers in Manipur, and working with women. And I mean, I say women because everybody there identified as women, from the fishing community near the Vembanad Lake in Kerala, also in Leh and Ladakh. And all these have only been possible because there are a lot of smaller organizations that come in with their own expertise, their own strengths, and are willing to collaborate with someone who's done more in-depth research on menstruation in particular, understanding hormonal complexity, understanding choices, feminist values, etc. And we're able to collaborate. And I think that's probably the best thing about this space and this sector in India. Like if you are on the MHM collective group, you just know how many organizations are constantly asking for help. And their helps are, I mean, their requests are always met with answers. And that's the beauty of it.
So, just to bring you in and talk about, how can, sort of menstrual awareness be combined with, sustainable menstrual solution, because I think that's what Peesafe as a brand is all about. And again, talking about like Sonal also mentioned, and drawing from what Soumya also said about the stakeholders coming together, what would be your 2 cents on this, Ashrina?
I think I completely agree that this is not a competition. It is a collective effort that everyone has to come in together and have a more holistic approach towards this, of solving this problem, which is as period poverty that we call it. This is not something that we want that this specific brand is only working towards this. If we see that more brands are working towards actually educating people, so I also feel that there's a lot of behavioral change which has to come amongst these people. We collaborate with a lot of organizations who are just working towards one-time distribution, but I feel that you're tempting these people of giving them some kind of resource which they won't have access to both month. So, what's the point of working on ground where you're just giving them access for 4 months and, to use it, and on the fifth month, they're not going up and actually getting pads for themselves. So, how we look at it is that we want to work towards a behavioral change together, not separately. And of course, the future is where everyone is using sustainable option, which we are working towards. We want to eradicate the taboo. We want to remove the fear of, menstruators using menstrual cups, or, reusable cloth pads, or maybe even going for an option as a biodegradable sanitary pad. Just an example, because like we are talking about the current scenario that we have, we often are, saying that, we are thanking our frontline workers right now. We are giving them all the applause that they need right now. But, we are forgetting the fact that they're menstruators also. They're wearing PPE kits for, more than 12 hours, more than 25 or 24 hours. And, they don't get an option to change, right? So can you imagine their situation right now where they are menstruating and they can't change for 12 hours and they're using a pad? So, what kind of approach that we look at this scenario is that, switch towards a sustainable option, which will keep you hygienic. For instance, a menstrual cup, and it is also towards a sustainable line, which we want everyone to switch to. So, as a brand, also, I would say that it is a collective effort. It is not a competition, and only us working together will only help us eradicate period poverty and reach our final goal.
So thank you so much. Thanks to each one of you for having this conversation with us and adding so much value. This was really insightful. So thank you so much.